No, filled up a week ago. I just cleaned it out today. So
Okay, it is the witching hour, so let's go ahead and get our thing going here.
come on, Microsoft, just let me buy more.
We'll first determine a quorum, and I see that we have one, but let's go ahead and check in. So Chris Wood,
Here.
Kevin Lyons, Diane Becker,
Here.
Denise Davis,
Here.
here, Roxana Dunn. So we have a full five, and I think that Mark may be joining us online in a little bit. All right, let's rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Jeff, would you lead us in that, please?
Sure. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's get to the underdog too. Righty. So let's go to general public comment first, and we don't have a podium. Catch that.
We have a mic right there, or that's the camera?
That's a camera.
We have a mic.
Mike here, we can just put a table.
Yeah, if you could just come in here where you're in the
Or
picture.
grab that table there.
Do a chair here. You want to-
Yeah, that'd be-
yeah.
What happened to the?
Whoa, 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 watch it, slow down.
There you go. Close enough.
Bend over.
Helen Neff?
Thank you.
You're lower, closer.
How's that?
Sure.
Perfect.
Okay. Helen Neff, Incline Village resident. Thank you for this opportunity to address the CAB. I'm submitting this public comment as both Commissioner Hill and Manager Brown are present, and hopefully they can help. I'd like to address the recent federal cuts to Forest Service staff and the freeze on hiring seasonal federal firefighters imposed by the Trump administration. Local advocacy has proven to be effective when the U.S. Postal Service planned to relocate Reno's mail processing operations to Sacramento. Local elected officials, community leaders, and the governor's office and Congress successfully worked to get that decision reversed. And the same level of commitment, coordination, and energy is now needed to challenge these recent federal cuts and the hiring freeze for seasonal firefighters. So I urge Washoe County to formally engage with Nevada's congressional delegation, the governor's office, pressing them to apply the same pressure as they did for the Postal Service. A united front through public statements, direct appeals, and community mobilization can help reverse these cuts and safeguard essential life-saving and property-protecting services in our county. Secondly, reducing hazardous forest waste is a key component of wildfire prevention. This suggestion might be a bit outside the box thinking, but would it be possible for Washoe County courts to collaborate with the Forest Service and local trail associations to assign public service hours towards cleaning hazardous forest debris? Nonviolent offenders completing court-ordered service could provide much-needed manpower to remove dead wood, underbrush, other fire hazards. This initiative would not only enhance public safety, but offer individuals a constructive way to contribute to the community. It's not a question of if, but when we will face a wildfire. Given the recent experience in Southern California, we've seen that the current federal administration will attempt to shift blame onto local authorities rather than providing support and aid. Washoe County should act now to do everything possible to counteract these life-threatening policy decisions being made under the guise of government efficiency. I appreciate your time and consideration and strongly urge the county to take action for the benefit of Incline Village, Crystal Bay, and all of Washoe County residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Any other public comments in the room? All right, we'll go online. Rhonda Tyser.
The thorny relationship between Washoe County and Incline Village residents over STRs continues now in 2025. In 2004, when TRPA board members categorized STRs as a residential use, they were not imagining STRs in 2025. In 2004, a homeowner might employ some agency like Vacation Station to rent people to people. The renter signed a lease and gave a deposit, and after the rental, returned the keys. But after Airbnb in 2008, STR renters interfaced only with a website to reserve, rent, pay, and report. Today, the only people-to-people interaction with STR renters are the disturbed neighbors. I don't need to belabor the problems because I've spent the last 8 years recording them and reporting them to Washoe. After Washoe finally legalized and permitted STRs in Incline in 2001, we residents gladly sent in our complaints to the host compliance hotline. But we soon found that there was no immediate problem solution. The Washoe enforcement officer was only in the office 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So website instructions were to first contact local police or IVCB. Complaints to host compliance weren't responded to immediately. Property managers were given 30 minutes to address a complaint. And then we found out residents had to provide video and audio recordings of the disturbances and sign an affidavit to be heard in court. And then there was the threat of immediate blowback from renters angered at being disturbed by the police as they partied. Many Incline residents opted to grit their teeth and hunker down, and others who couldn't take the smell of weed or thumping bass guitars at midnight moved. Washoe County laughingly interpreted the reduction in complaints in 2023 as their enforcement system working. Actually, the Washoe's STR ordinance is one of the failed actions that Incline residents most resent. If ever there is another revolt against the county, it will likely be based in great part on this resentment that the county's greed for TOT tax took precedence over the well-being of Incline residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. Anyone else? Okay, let's go on to agenda item number 4, announcements from Commissioner Hill, who is here in the flesh tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alexis Hill, and I'm happy to be here today to chat with you. I won't be going in depth on all the issues because you're going to hear from Manager Brown tonight, and I'm really excited for his presentation, but I just wanted to touch on a few things that are hot topics right now that I want to make sure that the community knows about. Budget updates. So as many of you know, I have been fighting very hard for Incline Village and Crystal Bay to receive its fair share of funding through the American Recovery Act funding that we received, as well as the other COVID dollars that came through to Washoe County and other grant opportunities. And now we're seeing many of those things dry up, sadly. We are at a point where realistically, and what you'll hear from Manager Brown is we're at potentially a 5-year budget deficit. So the county is yet again tightening our belts on these type of projects, but I do want you to know I'm continuing to fight to see how I can direct funding to Incline Village and Crystal Bay. There was a petition that was signed by many residents on the microtransit that you have in town, the TART Connect, and how there was reduced hours. Sadly, we may even see further reductions in hours because we have about a $250,000 gap in funding. The county did step up for the 2nd year in a row to fund this program to the tune of $400,000, which is a large amount of money for Washoe County to put into transit. But I'm a little concerned about raising the rest of the funds to end the season. I will tell you, at the Nevada legislature, there are going to be 2 bills that you will see, and I will get to your chairwoman, and hopefully we'll have enough time to make sure you know when the hearings are, that will be potentially funding for microtransit in Incline Village and other transportation opportunities. There will be a bill to increase the TOT tax that you heard Rhonda speak about to go towards transportation in Incline Village and Crystal Bay, so that tourists will help you pay for your transportation. And then also a business improvement district tax, where we could create a business improvement in Incline Village and businesses could help us pay for transportation. So those 2 bills are coming, but I did want to give the group a heads up. I'm fundraising as much as I can for microtransit, but we really need to find a continuing source of funding, especially for a free program like that. We will be accepting a donation from a community member at our board meeting on Tuesday, tomorrow, for an evacuation study throughout all of Washoe County, including Incline Village and Crystal Bay. So that will start this year. I'm really excited about that, and that a resident wanted to step up and help with that effort. I think that they see the issues and the concerns for fire safety in our community, and these public-private partnerships, especially when we have depreciating property tax that you'll hear about from Manager Brown, as well as just increasing costs of running your government, are really important. So I do want to say thank you for that. And I'm trying to see, I did take note of Ms. Neff's comments, and I will be bringing a way for us to discuss these cuts to the Forest Service and how they affect Washoe County, and any efforts that we can do for advocacy. I'm going to DC with the rest of my colleagues on the board at the end of this week and early next week for the National Association of County Government conferences. And we're going to have some big, robust talks about what does all the federal funding cuts mean for Washoe County. Manager Brown will discuss this, but I think it's about 300 people that we have that are grant funded in Washoe County, as well as many, many programs that would be affected by federal cuts. So we're monitoring that. And we know about as much as you do. Every day we wake up and find out new news. So we'll keep you posted. But these are the realities that we're facing in Washoe County. But I'm happy to take any questions from the board, Madam Chair.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I wanted to express that we appreciate anything you can do on the TARP Connect. But 2 things come to mind.
Denise? Or Denise, I'm sorry, Diane?
Yes.
We're having trouble hearing you online.
Oh, do you want this?
Okay, all right. Okay. So I had 2 suggestions. One is, we know that 50% of the TOT collected up here goes to the visitor center. And I think that if there's something that the community can do to push them to stop, instead of spending money on advertising, North Star Ski Resort, et cetera, and put some of that towards TARP Connect. I know I would certainly volunteer to write lots of things and call my friends, but I think we have an active community that would push on that. So that would be one thing I would urge. And the second thing is this: we know that a couple of the large employers use a very large percentage of TARP Connect for the employees that are the J1s, and they have no other means of transportation. And I don't know if that's something that you can approach as a request on a one-time basis for help, because maybe they would step up, so that maybe you could have specific TARP Connect buses, because their shifts are obviously the same. Everyone starts at or a lot of people start at a certain time. Maybe they could have a group of buses that they just pay for to get their people in and out. And I think that would leave much more for the visitors who we do want to have the access to those, and to the residents who we want to have the access to. That would be one thing. And the second thing that I would really like to urge is that in terms of projects that are being pushed for us, for the community, that perhaps you also get community input from the CAB, because some of the projects, I think, although they're every project is good. I mean, almost everyone has attraction. Some of them that are very expensive in terms of county staff trying to get funding for, that they haven't gotten yet, maybe could wait another year, you know, like the bike paths and those kind of things. And maybe we could put more into the safety issues, because I think all of us would really like to see, you know, safety as number one up. That was and we do thank you for your efforts. And I know it's going to be a challenging year.
Yes, and I'll just touch on two things that you brought up. Thank you, Diane. The Washoe Tahoe Transportation Plan, we still have that plan. We still know those recommendations are things we need to invest in on your local roads, on the state highways. I sent the team a grant opportunity through NDOT that I'm hoping they'll apply for one of those intersections that is seen as a priority in that plan. I'll keep you updated on that. So yes, that's something that our team is working very hard to see how we can find funding for those projects. The other piece that you brought up is the 50% of the room tax dollars going down the hill. That is in state legislation. So the first bill that the county commission actually endorsed in theory that came from the TRPA, well, it was the Marlet Lake TRPA legislative subcommittee that I don't know the full name, I'm sorry, I don't know the formal name, but they meet in the interim, and thank you very much. And so they, one of their recommendations is that a portion of the existing tourist tax go towards Incline Village, Crystal Bay projects like housing and transportation. There was a lot of pushback on that, so they changed the bill to say that and they would increase the tax, and a portion of that tax would go to transportation and housing projects. So it's a negotiation, because as you can imagine, there's interests that are pushing against, you know, changing any formula that goes to the RCVA, even though I'm on the RCVA, but I'm a big proponent for supporting Tahoe projects. I am not always the most popular person in that room, I'll tell you. So, but that is a legislative fix and not something we can just change at Washoe County, but certainly something that the commission wanted to see. It's just the political realities. We'll just see how it plays out at the legislature.
I just asked, does that mean though that those funds would be forever lost if there was something that replaced the RSCVA, like it couldn't go to some other uses up here? Or will those uses still have to be up here? I mean, in other words, if you take a percentage of what was going to the RSCVA and take it away, does that mean, can it be used for things other than Incline Village, Crystal Bay, or would only be used on things up here?
That was the original language, was that you take a portion of existing tax that the tourists are paying when they stay in Incline Village and Crystal Bay, and you move it towards those kind of community building aspects instead of the tourist marketing aspects. But again, there was a pushback, and so it's in state law, and I can send you the chapters of state law of how it's allocated. You're even paying for a portion of the event center in the city of Reno with the tourism dollars that are paid up here. So that's how it works. I've been trying to see how we can get our fair share, but you know, I am just but one commissioner, but I am working on that. That's been a passion of mine to see how I can. That's why I pushed it. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to be on the RSCVA board is to support Tahoe projects and in quality of life in Lake Tahoe.
So let me say this. When you're working on that, I had sent over to the, not when you were on the board, but an analysis of how they could support out of money that the RSCVA was receiving, trash collection, because the trash collection is disgusting in the summer, and a number of other things that are related strictly to tourism, because it benefits tourism. And the former CFO of the RSCVA went through it with the former city attorney, and they both agreed they could do that. but then it never got, never got done. So maybe I'll send you that. And maybe you could work a little.
Absolutely. It's just about getting the votes, but yes, I hear what you're saying and I'd love to see that. Thank you.
Great. Other questions from the board?
Yeah, thanks for the update.
Yes.
So what is the total amount, you mentioned the microtransit, what's the total amount for the budget for the microtransit for the 2020?
Oh, I should know that. I do not know on the top of my head. I can get that for you.
Roughly, do you know what that for?
It's like $1.2 million
1.2?
for every year, but I do
That's rough
not,
enough.
okay,
Is that
thank
right?
you.
Cool. And then what's the, what does that cover? How many buses, how many hours?
These are very good questions and I do not have the answers
Okay.
for you.
You know how many rides there are last year? Then?
I don't have that memorized. There is a full presentation on it, but I don't have all those details memorized.
That would be interesting. Of course, the reason I asked was like, what's it cost? What are we charging? We're charging $0 now, right?
And that's where it's tough because we're on the Placer County system. It would be nice if we had our own system because I do think a minimal charge would help with the system, but Placer County's policy is a 0 charge. And so we're working on that as well on the Regional Transportation Commission to discuss how we could potentially take that over. It's a lift, but there are discussions.
Yeah, and I guess in that case, we'd be paying the California rates for things.
No, actually,
No?
there's pluses and minuses with our transit program because it's contracted and it's turnkey. So there's pluses in that way that it's a contracted services, but there's minuses in that there's turnkey and the Placer County doesn't own the vans. And so there's no cost savings with owning the vans. We're paying that premium. So there's pluses and minuses with the project, but yes, there's better ways to do it, I'm sure. It's just we're part of a bigger system.
Okay. Wait, I guess, yeah, if we find out those numbers. And then what is the amount for the evacuation study and how's it going to be different from the one that was done?
I think that's the constituent who donated is paying the full amount, $185,000.
Okay.
And
hopefully not to the same people.
I think we're doing is it an RFQ?
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a totally different situation than originally.
So different requests and the different scope, different everything. Cool, thank you.
Okay. Denise Davis?
I got one.
I've got Denise though.
She is one of us. But she's on the board. So hey, she's not in the room. Room first
Denise.
makes sense. But
You're on, Denise. You need to unmute. Unmute.
There,
There you go.
it took a little bit. I too was going to ask about, are we making any progress in regards to fares? I know that the commissioner and I have had a few conversations about that. So it sounds like we're kind of in the same place. Is there any way for Placer County to offer either free passes or waivers for people that they're concerned about having transportation?
The problem is, because I also asked this question, is that the system that they have built with this contractor is not set around fares at all. So there is no checking, no verification, no training, nothing. So no fare box, no app that you pay the fare. So it would have to be reworked just for Incline Village, Crystal Bay, and they're because of their policy and that they have the larger system and they are supporting our system in the North Shore, they didn't have an interest in doing that. But hey, the financial realities that we're all facing in the government on all levels could be hitting Placer County. So we'll see. Things are always fluid.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Chris Wood?
are we back in the room?
Yes, we're back in the room.
Good, good. So my question is actually one where I think others might be struggling as I find myself. How do you find out how much the TOT is bringing in over time? And how is it allocated legislatively or otherwise? So how does somebody find that out? And that's really the question. You don't have to
Right.
recall memory and all this.
The RCBA, we get a financial report every month. We know exactly how much TOT each district is getting. We're Tahoe B, so we know how much we're getting monthly. As you can, with the I shouldn't say the R word, but potential recession that we may be seeing, the room nights have reduced. The only reason the Tahoe B has still been healthy is because the owners have been able to increase the price and keeping in pretty normal room tax for that area. But we're seeing a softening in travel, period, right now. So we'll see what's happening.
Are these monthly reports from to the group available publicly?
Yes, so, and I can send you the link where you can find it. It's at the RCBA, or I could send it to the chairwoman, the RCBA website. We get monthly financial reports. And then legislatively, the way that the funding is broken down, I can also get that to you as well.
Okay.
So, Roxana Dunn, the RSCBA doesn't have a category for STRs. And so when you're trying to figure out TOT for STRs, you have to look in two different categories and make some guesses. So just from an accounting point of view, that would be an improvement I think would help. I don't think it does. As of
I think we do.
15 or 16 months ago when I was going through it, it did not.
I could be making that up, but I seem to remember that the report had a breakout of.
It's based on, there were two different categories, both of which were not exclusive to STRs. So you couldn't even just add them together. It was two different categories, and one was based on if the billing is done through an Airbnb type of thing, and the other is if the billing is directly to the owner.
Yes.
And so those are the two categories, but it didn't split it out. So when I was trying to figure out how many STRs there were and how much TOT came out of that, there really wasn't an absolute way, excuse me, to track it down.
Okay.
Anyway. All right, any other questions in the room then?
I have a question about the monthly reporting of the TOT tax.
Okay, and please state your name, and you have
My
to.
name is Jeff Crow.
I'm sorry, Jeff, you're going to have to come up, and we don't have a podium tonight, so we're going to have to share this microphone.
My name is Jeff Crow. Hello. I am a local resident and an STR owner, and I promise I'm not evil. My question is, that tax is paid, as the STR tax in any case, is paid quarterly. How do they apportion that to give you a monthly report? Just the accounting of that, how does that work?
I would have to ask our CBA accountant. These are good questions that I'll follow up with Mr. Douglas about that, because I think his name is Robert Douglas that does the accounting for RSCBA.
But when you get your monthly report, is it like, what month are we in now? It's the end of February. So the last report you got, was it for January?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. It's on the website. Okay.
And this was Roxana again, this was another fun thing to try to figure out the math, was that the homeowner category only is reported quarterly.
Right.
The Airbnb is reported monthly, but there's a big lag. So it was not super data for figuring things out.
Yes.
Anyway,
Thanks. I have experts in the room here.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions in the room? We have, is that Yolanda? Okay.
Yolanda Canuck, for the record. I'm sorry I came in late, and it's my understanding that the current evacuation plan doesn't even include visitors. And when exactly are we going to get a new evacuation plan?
We just received funding for that. If the county commission accepts it at tomorrow's board meeting from a private citizen. And I don't know the timeline, Manager Brown.
I'll have an update if you just hold your questions about that.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right, any other questions in the room? Any questions online? Ooh, we had a bunch more people to add in. Okay, great. Thank you, Alexis. All right, that was great. And some good news there. All right, our public safety updates, agenda number 5.
Good evening. Jeff McCaskill, Sergeant with the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. If you don't mind, I'll stand. Nothing, no significant crimes or trends to report here in Incline Village. We obviously are aware of the speeders in town and doing everything we can. Obviously, Tahoe Country Club, Lakeshore, all targets for us to look for those speeders. Mr. Wood, last month you asked for some DUI stats. So I brought those for you guys since it seemed to be of significance to the community and to the board. So in total, throughout Washoe County, we had 22 DUIs in the month of January. 7 of those DUIs were made, those DUI arrests were made here in Incline Village. So I don't know. I mean, I would caution you on forming judgment on that, and basically elaborate on that by saying I have 4 deputies that are very good deputies at observing DUIs that are working for me on this side of the week. So that's a significant amount of those 7 DUIs.
Is that the unincorporated area then?
So
In
total Washoe County, 22 DUIs.
Excluding
Reno, Sparks.
I believe there's 3 DUIs in that 22 that that happened in the city of Sparks. So 19 total in Washoe County unincorporated. And then I will not be here next month, but I'll send somebody with next February, next month's stats if you guys are interested in hearing about that, because they're still working hard, doing great work.
Great. Any questions in the room, online? All right, thank you for keeping us safe and sober. All right, we are now to agenda item number 6, which is County Manager Eric Brown. I delegated off preparation for this to Chris Wood, who was able to put together specific questions and send them to Manager Brown. He did this before he had his accident while he was training for the men's downhill and the Milan Olympics here. So but anyway, I asked him also to introduce Manager Brown. So Chris, why don't you do that, and then
Introduction, I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. I was talking over you. What you asked?
just introduce.
Oh, okay. Delightfully tonight, we have Manager Eric Brown from the county, and that's the entire county. It's not just our part of it. So this guy's got a lot of responsibilities, and we've got to be very thankful for him coming. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Braving the hill in February.
Yeah, I just got, I was telling the commissioner, I just got by the crash that was out there. So, Mr. Wood, thank you for sending the questions. I think they'll be addressed, but keep me honest as we go through the presentation, because I put the presentation together with your questions in mind. So for those of you who I have not met, Eric Brown, Washoe County Manager, entering my 6th year as the county manager. And it's my pleasure to be with you here tonight. I'm not a stranger to this CAB, and I will continue to attend when I can. We have 8 citizens advisory boards in the county, and so sometimes the calendar gets a little maddening. This evening, I want to try to keep it brief and then take your questions. Alex told me I only had 15 minutes, so I'm going to try to honor that and stay within that. I do this presentation the first quarter of every year at all the citizens advisory boards to give you some sense of what accomplishments have been achieved over the prior year. The county continues to use a strict strategic planning process. It is a rolling strategic plan. By that, I mean every year we sit down with our 5 commissioners We review the results versus the prior year, what we said we were going to do, how did we do against what we said we were going to do. That's largely what you're going to see this evening. And then it's our chance also in this workshop to receive input from the commissioners about what they see as the key priorities going forward. And we take those and we make those the priorities as we go into our budgeting process, which we're doing right now. Okay, Alex, next slide. So the commissioner mentioned that we're entering some challenging financial times. You should know that Washoe County still is in fairly strong financial shape. We do have a structurally balanced budget for this year, but as she said, as you get out to years 4 and 5, and we do 5-year forecasting at the county, we start to see some problems. Simply put, our expenses are growing faster than our revenue streams. Our expenses are about 75% employee costs, so salaries, benefits, insurance, those kinds of things. Our revenues are largely driven by property tax payments, but the second largest category, which is about 28% of our revenue stream, is what's called consolidated tax or C-tax. Those are the taxes that are more variable in relation to the economy, that include the kinds of things the commissioner mentioned. So if people stop traveling or they stop spending money in our county, in our stores, in our restaurants, we see that in a softening of C-tax. I do want to be clear, C-tax is not going down, although it feels like it to us. It's just not growing as fast as it was. Over the last 3 fiscal years post-COVID, we were seeing C-tax in the 6%, 4 to 6% range, growth range. Right now, it's growing at less than 1% in Washoe County. And that is what is causing the concern as we look to the future. So we're having to be very careful about the factors we can control, those being expenses. We're tightening our belts. We're not looking to add a lot of staff. At the same time, we're going to do the best we can to hold on to the staff we have. We're also not looking to launch a bunch of new initiatives in this environment for the same reasons. This is not the time to do that. As the commissioner mentioned, a lot of the federal funding that we've been enjoying since COVID, ARPA funds and infrastructure money and that kind of stuff is coming to a halt. While we still have some benefit from ARPA funds over the next couple of years, we know that those funds are going away and we got to be careful going forward. I do want to point out the last bullet point on the slide. One of the new services we're going to launch within the next 30 days. It says open checkbook. We're going to call it Washoe Checkbook. The state launched a version of this called Nevada Checkbook about a year ago. This is a financial transparency tool. So for those of you who like to dig around and see, well, how much is Washoe County spending, how much is Animal Services spending on employees versus supplies versus other things. This tool will allow you to see that much more easily than if you're wading through our current budget book. I did a demo of it today. It's a fantastic tool. We're planning to launch it, as I said, in the next 30 days. We'll have more information about it, and we'd like to get on, Madam Chair, the CAB calendar to maybe demo it for you. We also will be holding a budgeting 101 workshop. I think that's scheduled for the last week of March. So the plan is to not only showcase the tool at that workshop, but talk about some of the other questions that citizens might have in terms of how things are labeled and what does this mean and what does that mean. It's all part of our effort to be more transparent with our constituents about what we're doing and where the money is going. Next slide, please. Okay, second thing is to bring to your attention citizens advisory boards
have been a big topic of discussion in the county over the last year. I do want to confirm for you tonight, the board has voted to continue CABs going forward. They have also given staff some clear input on things they'd like to see done to enhance and improve citizens advisory boards, as have you, the CAB members, and the public. We actually did a workshop in December, which was attended by about 40 to 45 of our CAB participants. Though all that input is being baked into revisions to the ordinances right now and into the bylaws. So you will see that again in the next 30 days. As they get into it, they found that some of these ordinances hadn't been updated for decades. And so the legal team's taking a little longer than we thought, but we plan to bring that to the commission in March for a vote. And so again, I'll come to a future meeting and give you an update on what that looks like. But the good news is CABs are going to continue. I know there's some concern in the community that they were going away. That is not the case. I also want to speak to neighborhood development meetings. So you all know that we in 21 decoupled the CABs from neighborhood development meetings. Neighborhood development meetings allow citizens a chance to see what developers are planning for developments coming to your community, and you can make comments and provide input. All that input then gets summarized and it is shared with the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustment, as well as in summary form to the commissioners. So those will continue going forward, and we will continue to provide updates through the hub, which Alex will reviews at all of your CAB meetings, so that if you're not able to access the information or attend the meetings yourself, you can see it through the hub portal and also provide comment, which would be shared. Next slide, please. All right, Alex, we got a lot on this side. So this is a summary of all the community grants and initiatives over the last year. You can see there's a lot of them. I would focus your eyes really more on the right side of that slide. So some of you are familiar with the fact that we found some money to fund the Lease to Locals pilot program, which is getting underway here in Incline Village. You know that we also completed the construction and relocation of the Incline Courthouse right across the parking lot here. We have the Incline Crystal Bay Main Street initiatives that we've been working with. We have also we were talking about the microtransit program. The commissioner was talking about that earlier, as well as the skate park that was funded in association with the General Improvement District. So all these are examples of investments that the county made in Incline Village over the last year. There are some other funding sources on the left side of the slide that I won't go through, but you have this going forward. Next slide. Broadband expansion, that was one of your questions, Mr. Wood. So over the last year, we have been working with the Governor's Office of Science, Information, and Technology. It's called OSIT, which is the agency that works to secure funding for broadband projects in the state of Nevada, rural, urban, everything in between. We thought we had an agreement to fund through federal infrastructure dollars a major build that would have included the Nevada portion of the basin. Unfortunately, as we got to the 11th hour, one of the agencies, and I won't say who, it wasn't us, backed out, and we had to start over because without their locations, the deployment just didn't pencil. That's the bad news. Now, the good news is just last Friday, OSIT came in to meet with me and Behzad Zamanian, who's our CIO, who I think has been to this CAB as well. the good news is Nevada just became the third state to receive what's called a BEAD grant. It's a BEAD is an acronym. I can't remember what it's for. Broadband equity, blah, blah, blah. The good news is they got $400 million for broadband deployments across the state of Nevada. They're planning to use about half of that for broadband deployments in what they call middle mile areas. So think if you're trying to get a broadband connection, a fiber connection between Reno and Tonopah or Elko. Not a lot of people on that connection. That's why they call it middle mile. So half of the money will be used for that. The other half will be used for what they call last mile installations. So that's the kinds of connections that affect individual residences and business addresses. There are just under 2,000 of those locations in Washoe County that have been earmarked for funding. We just received the maps this morning, so we're going through them. There are locations here in Incline Village, Crystal Bay. There are 6 broadband providers who will be doing this work. They include AT&T, Charter is not, by the way, AT&T. They include DTS, which is the group that helped us deploy fiber to Gerlach. They include Amazon, believe it or not, is getting into the broadband business, Sky Fiber, and Verizon, and one other whose name I can't remember. Here in Incline Village, Crystal Bay, Amazon won the bid. So we will be working with Amazon to, as quickly as possible, see what we can do to address some of the dead spots in this area. It will be likely a combination of wired and wireless deployments. So line of sight issues, as you all know, may become an issue, but we're going to see what we can do. The other good news about this funding is it has a shot clock on it. They have essentially 3.5 years to use this money or it goes poof. So they can't sit on it and wait forever. Believe me, since the announcement last week, they're already calling Bezod and asking for meetings so that we can begin planning and that kind of thing. So more to come, and we'll get Bezod to come maybe with OSIT and update you once we know more. They are negotiating the contracts with the winning bidders right now. So that's the stage that's going on now. Next slide, please. Elections. So everybody knows we had 3 elections during 2024. The presidential preference primary in February, the June primary, and then the November general election. We were able to successfully complete all of those elections. We also were able, in advance of that, to staff up our registrar of voters office, which we found through working with third-party consultants was woefully understaffed historically, which explains a lot of the service issues and unevenness and service quality issues we were going through. We had about 1/3 of the staff that we really should have had. So we have addressed that and upgraded our training materials. Those of you who were here when I talked about this last year, I talked about SOPs, standard operating procedures, which form the training modules, backbone of the training materials that you develop. Those have all been upgraded and actually used in the general election. So we've made a lot of progress. We coordinated with the Secretary of State's office with the top-down voter registration and election management system. The brand name is No Ink. Clark County has been on this product for about 4 years. Now the other 16 counties, including Washoe County, are using it, which will allow us to collectively do a much better job, I think, of managing the system, training, procurement should be improved, all those kinds of things. So big success in terms of moving the needle forward on our entire elections efforts. And then last but not least, the last commission meeting voted to approve Andrew McDonald as our new registrar of voters. He was the deputy ROV that actually orchestrated or oversaw the November election. He will be making, by the way, a presentation to the Board of County Commissioners tomorrow to provide them an update on what's being done since the election to improve quality of the voter rolls and a lot of the other issues there have been in the past. Next slide, please. Okay, emergency evacuation planning. That's the top popular topic here tonight. As the commissioner reported, we did have a private citizen step up and offer a grant or funding to the county, which will be put before the commission tomorrow to fund a county-wide set of evacuation plans. Kelly Echevarria, who all of you know, will be at the center of this process. We will probably end up with 6 to 8 communities in the county, including Incline Village, that will be addressed based on our observations around the county in terms of where the need is the greatest. The technology has changed significantly since the last evacuation plans were done. I don't think I have to tell folks in this room that. So we're really going to cast a wide net to see what's the best third-party resource we can use to bring this to fruition. In terms of time frame, I'm told by Kelly that it generally takes about 9 months to conduct the survey. So if you're asking me, if there are no significant delays, we're probably looking at a year before we know what the recommendations are. Next slide. Okay, Tahoe Area Plan and Workforce Housing. So as you know, your commissioner sits on TRPA board, and that is your regional planning agency. They are in the midst of an area plan update, which I'm sure all of you know, but if you don't, that's what's going on. We will be participating in that, obviously, as one of the board partners to make sure that we're voicing your concerns in terms of housing and what types of housing and that kind of thing. We just went through the area plan update over in Truckee Meadows. It's a very important process, so I would say to you, this is the time to voice your concerns or your suggestions, things you want to see, because this is the plan that will help drive how things go going forward. Next slide. Okay, let's talk about the year ahead. As we look toward ahead in the rest of 2025, in this community, as I said, we're going to continue to run the cabs and look to improve them. We're also, I didn't speak to it earlier, but we're going to be moving forward with a site use plan for the new Washoe Behavioral Health Center. This is a 46,000 square foot facility, kitty corner to our senior center on 9th Street in Reno. And even though it's located in Reno, this will be a regional behavioral health center. So it will benefit this community as well as other Northern Nevada communities. You will see primarily based on extensive outreach that our behavioral health administrator, who was Julia Ratty, has done in this region. You will see 2 primary areas of focus. The one is expanded behavioral health services for kids and youth, particularly for those who have acute behavioral health problems. We do not have that type of facility in our region right now. So our thoughts are at this point, you'll see about 60% of the facility will be devoted to those kinds of uses. The other major use for the facility for adults, we will have what are called subacute mental health services. If you think about the people who are sitting in our jail tonight or sitting in the CARES campus or our place, one of our shelters, who are not a threat to the community, they simply don't have anywhere else to go and they need behavioral health services. That's what we're talking about with subacute. Again, this type of facility does not exist in the state of Nevada, so we're pressing hard at the state level with Health and Human Services to make sure they understand we're taking a very serious evidence-based approach to this. We're going to need some help. We're going to need some funding to help make all of this come to fruition. But that is a very big lift that we're working on getting done. I talked about the evacuation plan, so I won't comment more on that. Obviously more focused on grant funding. Since we know that we have a softening of C-tax revenues and revenues, our community reinvestment group, we're doubling down to make sure that they're prospecting for grants that can help our communities, like the grant the commissioner mentioned earlier. We're also working on public-private partnerships. So in a way, you can think about funding for the evacuation plan as an example of that, where it's not just public money that's being used. We're working with private individuals, businesses, et cetera, who have an interest in seeing certain things funded. We're going to be focusing on affordable housing as one of the areas for that. County has some vacant lands and parcels that we can make available to developers if they're willing to help us partner to bring the kind of housing that we need that is attainable for our community. We will be doing updates to the FEMA floodplain designations. You may have heard about this. This is another one where there are about a half a dozen communities around the around the county that have been identified by FEMA that the existing floodplain designations no longer apply. Things may need to be updated. Think about this as if you are a property owner and you would want to know if your home is now in the floodplain and it wasn't 12 years ago, let's say, or vice versa. Has an impact potentially on what you might do with the home in terms of mitigation, in terms of insurance, that kind of thing. I also want to mention the Washoe Tahoe Academy. So this is something that we're very excited about that we're bringing to you this spring. I think it starts in late April. It is going to be an opportunity for this community to come together and learn more about how local government works in your neck of the woods. I think it will also give you an opportunity to converse with us about what your priorities are and what you would like to see. One of the challenges that I've always said about Incline Village is, unlike some other regions of the county, it can be difficult to understand what's the prevailing view here. And if you're the county or you're the commissioner and you're trying to do what the community wants, this is a difficult one very often in terms of, well, do I go right or do I go left or do I just sit still? I think that the Academy gives the community a chance to hopefully converge on a consensus voice, maybe a process for determining consensus that will help us manage through issues going forward. Okay, I think that's all enough for today. I will be happy to take any questions if there are any.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. We will start with the board. Questions? Chris Wood.
Yeah. So the evacuation planning.
Yes.
$185,000 grant.
Yes.
And that's just for us coming up with some recommendations. Is that right?
That is to, it's not just recommendations. There's actually a study, right? And the study includes things like that you care about, like what are the traffic artery capacity issues?
What are the number of visitors that could
exactly. All of those things are included in the study.
And so that study would be more of a recommendation, not a, unless the commission says, all right, that's our roadmap, we're following that. Am I missing something?
I think you would hope that they adopt the recommendations if we do this right.
So that's the idea, is to present it to the
Yes.
commission. All right. And then implementation is going to be another set of costs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
And where would that money come from if we're so lucky to have this private grant, another private grant maybe?
Maybe, or, you know, we got time to figure that out. And because you don't know what target you're shooting at until you see the recommendations and what they're going to cost. Because any potential funding source is going to say, well, how much do you need? Well, we're in the process of determining that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Other, Diane?
Diane Becker. So I had one thing that I would have worked on with Roxana, and we presented to a number of staff members on the Tahoe area plan. And we were hoping that there would be a evacuation plan budget, and this is extremely exciting. And we thank everyone for your efforts on this. But what we had suggested and urged on the Tahoe area plan is we understand that it's being mandated by TARPA that you have to follow what they're saying. And we did some research and we put in at least an argument that could be made by the county to say, we have lots of stuff we can do and there's a lot of things we can do, but if we adopt the taller, denser buildings, bringing so many people onto Tahoe Boulevard to be evacuated before there's the evacuation study, we've asked that be put off for a year. With the information we gave you really could support, you are going to them and saying, look, we are doing the study. We're putting $185,000 into this study. We have to see what we can do safely. That is not exactly the direction that we understand that TARPA wants to go. But I want to say, Roxana and I urged that the county take the position that our safety is of paramount importance, and we gave actually a full page of things you could start doing to encourage workforce housing, and there's so many things that could be done in the beginning, but to build higher, denser housing that is, number one, not rental housing for workers, but it's going to end up being a lot of condominiums for achievable probably, so people can make more money. We really urge that not happen, at least until you get the evacuation study. That's just our urging. I'm not saying that comes out of the CAB because we didn't bring that to the CAB, but you know, at the prior CAB meetings, we all said we are really concerned about evacuation, and we'd appreciate if people would think about it. And if it's okay, maybe Roxana could send both of you what the summary of what we put together, as well as the presentation itself was much bigger.
I think we did send it to them.
Oh, you did. Oh,
We did.
At your suggestion.
Oh, well.
Okay. All right. Other questions from the board? Chris?
I have a different one.
Okay.
You talked about public-private partnership opportunities for affordable housing. I want to focus on that. And I think you threw at us at one of those quote opportunities as land that the county could make available.
Yes.
Okay. I want to switch to the developer side.
Yes.
Are there any developers that you're aware of or that you plan to entice in some way to get involved in these kind of partnership opportunities? And let me also ask you, is this going on in the city of Reno and Sparks that you might be aware of that might be people who we could touch or talk to get interested here? Sure.
So for the record, Eric Brown, County Manager, this is a model that's being used across the country. It just hasn't been used and discussed as broadly maybe here as some other areas. We are definitely, over the last year, since the commission first emphasized making affordable housing as a county priority, because before that it was understood that the county would build the shelters, and Reno and Sparks would address affordable housing. Commissioners aren't happy with the progress, what they see going on there. So they came to the staff and said, okay, look, we got to get something going here in terms of attainable housing for this community. And we have had numerous discussions with developers who are in this space. And to give you an example, one model might be a 50 or 100-year lease to you, the developer, if you are doing 0 to 60% AMI housing in this location. And the agreement would also stipulate that the county gets royalties on whatever revenues are generated. That's the simplified, basic way that it would work and why the county might make a land available. No decisions have been made yet, but this is one of the models that we've talked about. We are in discussions with EDON, which Taylor Adams, who's been there about a year now, is the head of CEO of EDON. This was something that he has in his background. He came here from Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is my hometown, by the way. And there were multiple projects that were done in this fashion. So it's not necessarily a new way of doing things, a new way for us to do things. It's very complicated, but we got to do something to explore other avenues for generating funding other than the general fund, because as I just showed you, that's not going to work long term. So.
Okay.
Okay. Roxana Dunn, my turn. Sorry. Roxana Dunn on the CAB. I have a couple of questions. So on the evacuation study, $185,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's sort of one fully loaded person for a year back in my old engineering days. And so I don't know how far that's going to get you. We have already done a fair amount of study. I know it's not official, but I put in a lot of time coming up with population estimates, and Doug Flaherty, I'm sure you're aware of the study that he did where he hired professional consultants to come up with some of the numbers. I'm sure both of us would offer whatever we have to help this along if there's a way that you can incorporate some of that. So just want to throw that out there. All right. And then in terms of housing, I've forgotten where they were, but it seems like there were a couple of Washoe County lots. Do you remember when we were doing do you remember that?
I think that they're talking probably about lots down the hill.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are.
There's
But
very little.
yeah,
There was very little up here.
they were small, but there were a couple. So my question was, would they be in play?
Yeah, we're having this conversation.
Okay, great. All right, and for the record, Alexis Hill answered yes. Okay. All right, questions online. Okay, Denise Davis. Well, I'm gonna do CAB and. Have you, okay, sorry, Denise, hold on one moment. Kevin Lyons.
Kevin Lyons, so I was curious about how the ARPA funding, since that's coming to an end, as we mentioned earlier. How has that been used so far? Was that used to fill shortfalls, or was that actually been used to augment the budget over the last few years?
So for the record, County Manager Eric Brown, it was 91, almost $92 million. There were a total of over 120 projects, including things like CARES Campus, including things like improving some of our parks facilities and things like that. I can get you a summary if you'd like to see it. It's pretty expansive. The board also directed that they wanted to see some sort of smaller community nonprofit organizations be recipients of this money, not just the county departments, not just big nonprofits, if you will, like the Boys and Girls Club, et cetera. So we did sub-grants, and we put those out, and I can't remember how many of those there might be that are underway right now. Right now, we're focused on, now that the money has been assigned, focusing on compliance. So our community reinvestment team has to continually follow up with the grant recipients, make sure that they're adhering to the Treasury requirements. If there's challenges that we need to help them with, we step in and do that. But it's expansive, and if you go to the county website, I think you can find it. But I can send you a summary from the last update that was made to the board.
Okay. Do you know roughly how many of those projects ended up here?
Well, some of those on the list were, I
saw a couple, yeah.
I would say probably about, I don't know specifically, no. Yeah.
Okay, Denise Davis.
All right. Denise Davis, hello, Manager Brown. I have two questions that kind of go together. So first, I don't believe any of the Washoe County BDRs or requests to the legislature deal with any of our insurance issues that we are facing, especially in the Tahoe Basin, but I believe increasingly outside of the Tahoe Basin. So I was wondering if our county is working in front of the scenes, behind the scenes, talking to our legislators during this session to make them aware of our insurance problems. And secondly, this will tie in later, but building new affordable or achievable or any of those levels of housing is going to take some time. And so I'm wondering if we are also exploring ways to possibly redevelop properties. I've heard you talk about how you were inspired to make an offer for the West Hills Hospital. So I know you've been involved in those kind of things. And I bring that up because we're hearing more and more that people, because of the insurance problems and because of the increases in insurance, they're just not able to afford, especially condos at this point. So I don't know if the county has put any thought into, redeveloping some condo complexes, not only to help the people who already are there stay there, but to develop that into housing. And perhaps that could come online sooner than building new housing. So those are my two questions. Thanks.
Great questions. So for the record, County Manager Eric Brown. So I'll take the second one first. The reality is in unincorporated Washoe County, we just don't have a lot of housing stock to be redeveloped. City of Reno has some, Sparks has some. If we did, I think we'd get more aggressive about it, but we do think there is an opportunity to look at some of the parcels we have. We've identified maybe 15, 18 acres as an example, as a starting point to down in the Truckee Meadows area. These are parcels that are, we think, good candidates for low-income housing or even workforce housing because they're close to mass transit, they're close to other shopping and amenities that folks would need, as opposed to being so isolated that people can't get to anything. So yes, we've thought about rebuilding things. Believe me, we look for both commercial and residential stock all the time because, by the way, I have a registrar of voters who's out of space, as an example, and if I could find a place to relocate them, but the economics appear to be you're almost better starting over than trying to rebuild in order to bring things to code. So yes, that's a long-winded answer to your first question. It is certainly something we've considered. As far as insurance, I'm sure your commissioner could talk to you a lot more intelligently about that than I can. I can promise you multiple commissioners are having conversations with the governor's office, with their state legislatures, because we're all hearing and feeling the same concern about our constituents not being able to insure their homes for these disasters. And given the realities of the world we live in, I think they see the need for change. But you did not see that, you're right, the county sponsor a BDR because quite frankly, it's so early in the process. I think they more dialogue.
Yes, sure.
The county has been part of these conversations for insurance. We didn't have a BDR because the insurance commissioner needs to ask the legislature, and we think that there is actually some appetite to give him more discretion to require insurers who insure in the state of Nevada to insure at least condo owners in insurance, maybe not single family homes. That's a whole other ball of wax that we could get into, that not tonight, but certainly I'm happy to have that conversation as to why that's more difficult. But at least folks on, who are in these condos who have restricted incomes, that is something that is being discussed at the state level. Also, people are discussing the state of Nevada entering that insurance of last resort that other states have done. However, you'll see in the state of California, they've done the same thing, and I don't think it's going to be solvent, to be honest, after this LA fire. And so I think there's a hesitation on behalf of the legislature and the governor to enter into that space. But yes, giving the insurance commissioner more authority to require that at least our condominiums are insured in the state of Nevada is something that is being undertaken and discussed at the legislature. Where it goes will be interesting. I'm not sure.
What's a BDR?
Oh, bill draft request. Yeah, we should not be doing, abbreviations or whatever they're called.
Can I do a follow-up on that one real quick? Yeah, so just a follow-up on that, if you're familiar with the problems in California and the insurance market and everything, you failed there because of the changes they made to the market. Is anyone in Nevada trying to get at the root problem, which is the fundamental risk of being in certain areas with certain tree density and so on? In other words, if we don't solve the risk problem, all you're doing is playing a shell game with who's gonna get stuck with the money. Are you aware of any?
Are you saying on a planning?
Planning,
front?
tree thinning, like all the issues, basically, fire prevention, detection.
TRPA got a $3 million grant for some of this discussion on that funding may be gone. So that may be one of those, I'm not sure where it is. I think we're still fighting for it in the same way that the East Shore Trail completion funding is at risk as well. So anyway, that is a discussion that we're having on the Tahoe level, in the Truckee Meadows. I think that is something that they're undertaking after this Davis fire and what happened there. But yes, there's a fundamental bigger issue. And the feds, we've asked Amade's office for an analysis on this. I have a memo from his office on what the federal government could do, what kind of legislation has been proposed. It's very interesting. I'll need a reminder on all these things. I'm promising to send the chairwoman, but I can send this to the chairwoman to make available to the committee, because that also was some interesting information we received from his office on that.
Thank you.
Roxana, can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, go ahead, Denise.
So Manager Brown, just a comment. I'm noticing in our smaller condo complexes, like where there's only 4 or 6 units, that there's a majority of for sale signs in those small communities. So I'm just bringing that up because you're a creative thinker and just wondering if there's some way for the county to either step in and enable people to keep their local housing or somehow work with that to use those condos in small associations that are already existing to create some of this workforce and affordable and achievable housing that you're working on.
Okay, that's something that we can look into.
All right, we'll go to, all right, one more from the cab, and then we'll open it up.
I had forgotten.
Diane Becker.
Diane Becker. I wanted to ask this. We've recently read in the newspaper, I have not been attending IVCB meetings, but we had read that there was, the audit is not going to, they're not going to be able to get a certified audit, that will have some ramifications, that auditors were, I mean, this is all in the newspaper, but that the auditors said there were $6 million of duplicate payments, and they couldn't figure out if they're duplicate payments or what they are. And there are a lot of financial problems that are existing. And I didn't know if the county could do something to talk to the state to push harder to really protect us, because as residents, this is the one place that I think we could be at risk, which is there's a large group of new, like 40 or $50 million of new projects of improvements that it would be a shame if those got approved and our rec fees and all our fees go, through the ceiling until, they get a hold on what all these problems are that the last audit showed and that this most recent audit showed. Is there anything that the county might be able to do, or is that something the county doesn't step in on?
I think, so for the record, County Manager Eric Brown, we have to be careful because as you know, the general improvement districts are independent entities. So I can tell you, we watch very closely what's going on. We have conversations with Secretary of State's office about where the boundaries are in terms of our involvement. We have been helpful to the GID, you may know this, in terms of helping them identify the right financial talent they needed to come look at the books and try to put things in order. But we have to stop short of actually putting county employees into the organization. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I would just say to you, we're not ignoring it, but we have to be very careful.
Okay, very good. All right, questions in the room? Helen, I know.
Hi, Helen Neff, Incline Village resident. Thank you. It was wonderful to hear everything that you presented. I just wanted to ask about question number 4, which was on tourism.
Yeah.
And the warming that's occurring in Reno. And whenever the temperatures hit 100 degrees or close or over, thousands of people head up to Tahoe and clog our roads and create more emissions and bring bad air quality to our region. I realize you can't do anything about climate change. I mean, that's kind of hard. I know you at some point. Your sustainability manager is doing a report on what can be done, but I just wanted to bring for the record that efforts to have a transportation system to bring people here when they need to come here to cool off would be very, very helpful. And I know TRPA is working on things, but I believe it takes the cooperation of RTC and other entities to make that happen. So to get individual cars off the road and put people in mass transit to come up here. And keep in mind the day visitors, yes, we do love them, but they don't spend as much as people spending the night or staying.
Which we don't get anyway. So.
Well, but the businesses, the local businesses.
Okay, I'm sorry, Yolanda, this woman right here was next.
Hi, Melissa Horton, 11-year resident of Incline, military spouse. Thank you for being here this evening. One comment and one question. I guess going back to what Board Member Davis and Board Member Lyons mentioned just a minute ago with regard to fire prevention. In the NRS, it's my understanding that there's a carve-out exception for HOAs, that the HOA boards cannot dictate, they can dictate architectural guidelines and building guidelines, but when it comes to sustainability, that there's a carve out for that, like windows, for example, or I don't know, heaters or something. So to their point, I'm also wondering if it would be possible to explore with the legislature a carve out exception for fire prevention, to include like materials that are fireproof or fire resistant, things like that. Then my question is, broadband for dummies. Can you explain a little bit sort of what that means? In particular, like when you say Amazon is bidding on this or T-Mobile, like, are they going to install the infrastructure and then do they own that infrastructure or do we own a part of it or how does that work?
Okay. For the record, County Manager Eric Brown, it's a great suggestion on the front end, and we'll take that back and see what we can do. On the broadband front, no, these 6 providers would be responsible. They would own the infrastructure that they deploy and they would operate it. And in the case of Amazon, as I said before, a lot of what they have done around the country has been wireless. I suspect that's why they were awarded here in Incline Village and some spots on 28 and 431. So this is going to, honestly, this will be very interesting because they've not done any, to my knowledge, any major deployments. There was a very rigorous review process done by NTI and by the federal government and the state to make sure that anybody who submitted a bid could actually do what they said they were going to do. But you know, we'll have to see how it rolls out. There is a question long term. If you go 10, 15 years from now, will those 6 companies still be around? And if they're not, what happens to the facilities that they deploy under this grant? That is a question for all, in my mind, for all of this broadband stuff that's being done in traditionally underserved. There's a reason they're underserved. It's because the economics have not been that attractive, so.
Okay, all right, Yolanda.
Yolanda Canuck for the record. Last summer, there was an article, I believe it was in the Tahoe Tribune. It said that South Lake Tahoe, when the Caldwell fire was raging, took them 11 hours to evacuate. And of course, they have 50, which is a 2-lane road each way, 2 lanes each way to get down to Carson City. I think they have more exits. And according to the article, it says it would take 14 hours for us to, here in Incline, for us to evacuate. And of course, the whole thing about the current plan not including visitors. So I'm concerned about increasing the numbers of people living here and visiting here until this evacuation situation is fixed. There is one option that somebody had said that going down Mount Rose, apparently there's an old Mount Rose road that could be, if Congress wanted to approve it, I'm not sure would help us so much here getting up there, but at least it would help getting down the other side of the mountain. A couple other things. I was a little concerned. I don't know the whole systems of the Washoe County. I don't know who's in charge of the library manager. When he lost in the election, that extra money, he turned around and hired, this is what I understand, hired administrative people right away, like hiring more people, but like administrative people to promote the library. And I have concerns about that. Also, in August, the Secretary of State said, oh, I'm going to clean up the voter rolls, and then didn't. And it's my understanding that it's actually county commissioner's job to make sure that the voter rolls are cleaned up. Thank you.
Okay, there's a lot there. Where do I start? Well, it is each county, for the record, Eric Brown, county manager. It is each county's responsibility to maintain their voter rolls accurately. But the Secretary of State's office plays a role in it as well in this state. And with the new model that we're going to, where we're all on the same system, the reporting is now done out of the Secretary of State's office primarily. So I would, yes, we treat it like it's our responsibility. I can tell you that. But in some areas, it is a shared responsibility that we share with the Secretary of State's office. As far as the library, I'm sure you know this, but the library is governed by a separate board. It is not governed by the Board of County Commissioners. So any concerns you might have, that's where you would need to direct those comments to the library board of trustees. I can tell you that any claims that he hired a bunch of people after the initiative are false. That didn't happen. So.
Okay, good. Jeff.
Jeff Crow, resident. Just a quick question. The Washoe Tahoe Academy, the first session is scheduled for April 30th. I'm wondering when applications open to apply for it.
So
I think they're open.
It is open. They've been announced already.
Oh, well, I've been checking the website religiously and
okay,
it says application coming soon. So I guess I'm not in.
Okay. No, they haven't, no. The applicant. Alexandra, help us.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
Alexandra Wilson for the record. So applications will open in March. So we're just a few days away from that. And we're coordinating all the questions. So we will have it open for about a month.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
No
Okay.
problem.
Any other questions in the room? All right, online, Kathy Julian.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Two questions. First for Mr. Brown, thank you very much for your presentation. On the evacuation plan, it's a countywide plan, so that's of concern because 185,000 for the entire county is perhaps not as much as one would hope. But are we going to have a means of public input into the evacuation study, I should say, early on in the process with the consultants so that there is time to adjust the study if need be based upon that comment from residents in Incline Village and Crystal Bay? That's the first question. And the second point is simply a note of support for the library system in Washoe County. I think all of our families here benefit from the library. John Crockett, our local manager here, is excellent. We use it as you are using it. I think today you're at the library. This is such a critical institution for our community, and I hope that the County Board of Commission will be able to fund it appropriately. Thank you.
Okay, so for the record, County Manager Eric Brown, Kathy, we agree with you. I have yet to talk to a commissioner who is not as concerned as members of the community are about the outcome of that vote. So know that it isn't being taken lightly. I can't share with you because we're in the throes of budgeting right now what the solution will be, but we're trying hard as hell to find one. The second thing is, what was the second thing? Oh, thank you. I can promise you, I make the personal commitment to you tonight that yes, you will be able to provide input into the process early enough to make a difference. You know, the $185,000, I want you to think about the fact that there are sections of the county that really don't need evacuation planning, or the plans have been done more recently. So as Kelly goes through this evaluation, if we find that we need to augment it for some reason, because what we can buy for what, in terms of the study for 185 doesn't do it all, then we'll be transparent about that and we'll tell you. But I can tell you this, Incline Village will be at the front of the line. So the other 5, 6, 7 communities might be at risk. But this one, your commissioner, your CAB, your community has been very clear ever since I've been here for 5 years. This is something you wanted to see. It would be irresponsible of us not to get it done for you. Okay?
Thank you. Anyone else online? All right, Manager Brown, thank you so much for a very
Thank you.
All right. Neighborhood Hub, Alexandra, anything happening?
Yes, good evening, members of the CAB and attendees. My name is Alexandra Wilson, for the record, part of the commission support team within the manager's office. The update that I have today is there is an upcoming project that affects all the districts called Article 904, Nonconformance for Code Amendments, Chapter 110, the Development Code. It is occurring on February 26th, which is Wednesday, this Wednesday. And I believe it is at 5:30, but let me look real quick just to make sure. It is not saying the time, so I will go ahead. Oh, here it is, 5 o'clock. So anyone that wants to attend, it is in person at 1001 East 9th Street. And that is the only update that I have.
Do we have any clue what those development codes relate to?
So in the description, it's saying that it's extending the time to obtain building permits for destroyed or partially destroyed structure.
Okay. Great, thank you. All right, anything else on the hub?
Not at this moment.
Okay, item number 8 is board announcements, and I have a couple. These are just follow-ups from our last couple of meetings. At the last meeting, we prioritized items that we wanted to see the transportation group, the Washoe County Transportation Group do. Our primary, the number one area that we want them to focus on is State Route 28 intersections that have continued to be a problem. So I passed that along. I did indicate that I didn't think I did a really good job of clarifying what the different issues were. So I didn't say that our vote was great, but it was clear that that was high on the list. And then we had asked for specific suggestions. So I submitted the following ones. First of all, we acknowledge that there has been some improvement, particularly with the painting of the side of the crosswalks. The suggestion to use leading pedestrian intervals where traffic stops in all directions, lower the speed limit to 25, flashing beacons on all 4 directions at 28 Northwood, Southwood, the east one by the skate park. I noted that Helen Neff sent in a detailed list of things and suggested that he look at those. And then I added one after the fact, so my apologies for that. But I almost ran over somebody when I was coming out of Rayleigh's, and I kind of realized what the issue was. When you're coming out of Rayleigh's and turning right where the crosswalk is, all of your attention is to the left because cars are coming up over a hill. So you have much less time to see them, and you have much less time to get, you don't know how much time you have. And so that's what causes you to do that. So I called his attention to that and said, maybe we need to move that crosswalk. Okay. Then there were other suggestions in other categories, and I submitted those as well. The second thing I wanted to bring up is that Diane and I did meet with the planning department from Washoe County, specifically Trevor Lloyd, Kat Oakley, Courtney, I can never pronounce her, Waikey, and Eric Young. And we presented an argument for either delaying or modifying some of the TRPA standards, particularly as has to do with density and stuff. Our two main arguments were, one, the need for an evacuation study before we start putting more people into the crowded area. So tonight's news is excellent news that we're going to see some actual progress there. And then the second big area that we emphasized was the need to make sure that when we do build workforce housing, it is for the workers in IVCB and not just for people working remotely or people who are helping North Star skiing and that kind of thing. So we focused on those. I had a couple of copies up here. If you want it, I will post it also on the website. Should be part of the minutes when I get it to Alexandra. But you can see the argument that we put in there. And I would say that the folks we spoke with were very sympathetic, but do feel like their hands are tied a little bit. And so, you know, we all know that one. We're all working against constraints. So we appreciate at least their interest and hope that they will make some progress there. Any other board announcements? Diane?
I received an announcement that at the library, unfortunately, the same time as on the 26th, that at 5 o'clock, there's going to be a presentation on a new evacuation. I don't know if it's an opportunity. It just said it's called Fire Watch. I don't know what it is. And I thought people should check it out if they want to see it, because it should be something reasonably useful to the community.
Okay. So that's a warning app?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think it is. Yes, that's the 26th at 5.
Okay, great. All right. Denise? Well, I'm sorry. Did you guys have anything? Well, you don't have anything, so quit bitching.
Wait a minute.
Denise? Go ahead. Unmute.
You have to wait for Alexandra to unmute you.
Okay.
What Diane is referring to is the Fire Alert Network. The director of that is going to discuss how the Fire Alert Network works and what we can all do to help with home hardening and wildfire preparedness.
Okay. Alexandra.
Hi there, Roxana. I'm not sure if you wanted me to make the announcement of what's coming up next month or if you were going
Yes, I
to
do.
make comments.
Please.
Okay, perfect. So next month, as noted on Manager Brown's presentation, we will be having Placemate come to the CAB to talk about the Lease to Locals program. We're also gearing up to potentially have UNR Living with Fire, as well as the North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District to come to talk about home hardening, as well as defensible space in April. And those are the two that are scheduled at this time. Additionally, I did want to let you guys know, since Denise had mentioned that I do have to unmute individuals, we've had some Zoom bombings. So we have changed our Zoom procedures so that only I can unmute and allow individuals to share their screen. So sorry about the extra time that it takes, but just to make sure that no one is displaying inappropriate materials or saying anything that they shouldn't.
Great. Thank you. Yes, we had one of those and that was rude. All right. What else is on the agenda here? General public, anything else? checking down here to make sure. Okay, general public comments in the room.
I just
Jeff,
have one more question, it's not a comment.
okay.
One of the slides that Manager Brown presented indicated something about a pilot of a lease to a local program.
That's it.
You want to come to next month's CAB meeting?
Okay, I'm just wondering where would I go?
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
On the website.
Next
You can
month.
also go to IVCBA.org on our housing website.
Yes.
Or our housing page, you can just read all of it.
Right. Okay, and anyone else in the room with general public comment to close? All right, online, Denise?
Denise Davis. In December, we discussed having an item on each agenda to get feedback from the community about a topic that we specified in advance. And we did that in January. I don't see it on this agenda, and so I'm hoping that we include that on the March agenda. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And to answer that, we covered actually two big topics in January, so we had a lot of talk. We're trying to keep the CAB meeting shorter. We're not quite there, but we're getting there. And so we will try to put them in when we can. By the way, I got a lot of compliments on last month's discussions because people felt good about being able to state their case. So thank you for Denise for that suggestion. All right, anything else? All right, motion?
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I have to run home. I have 3 emergencies.
Yeah. Oh, well, good grief. Take care.
Very well.
No.